to a
Okay, we
so
are recording.
thanks so much. So I want to start by acknowledging that I am on Treaty 5 territory this evening, and most of the locations that would be dialing in this evening would be in Treaty 5 or Treaty 6 territory. I want to acknowledge the many Indigenous groups that have occupied these lands and to whom this is the traditional territories. We honor the intents of the treaties that were created here. I want to introduce myself. I'm Becky Chimfloni. I'm the manager with Community Futures Greenstone based in Flin Flon. And I also want to just introduce my partners in crime, as it were, this evening. The two Sandras. So we have Sandra Shapiro from Community Futures Cedar Lake. So Sandra has done a lot of the organizing and logistics behind the scenes to help put these webinars together. Thank you so much for that. And then the other Sandra Oberdorfer in Thompson. She's with Community Futures North Central Development. So you've got the Northern Brain Trust here of Community Futures organizations to help you out. One of our goals at Community Futures is to support communities in approaching problems and solving challenges in new ways. And so one of the ways that we do that is by talking about new ways of doing business and different models that we might employ in our communities. So to that end, I'm going to introduce Ryley Hawkeswood. Ryley is the community engagement coordinator for an organization called Co-operatives First, who he's going to tell us all about. He is from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. So like I said, basically considered a neighbor if you're in northern Manitoba. He holds a bachelor's and master's degrees in political studies from the University of Saskatchewan. During his studies, Ryley was a research assistant for a team researching housing security and homelessness in rural and remote communities. With Co-operatives First, he helps to guide groups in creating co-ops, mainly in rural and Indigenous communities across Western Canada. I want to thank you so much for joining us, Ryley. And I think given the weather tonight, we're all really grateful for this technology at our fingertips.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for the introduction, and I'll pass it back. Thank you to all of you for making the time to join this tonight. It's great to see people who are eager to learn about co-op businesses and how they can be used to fill gaps in communities. Also, thank you to Community Futures Greenstone, Cedar Lake, North Central Development for putting this together and allowing me to come and talk a little bit about, co-ops. So tonight, what I'll be talking about are how co-ops can be used to fill gaps in communities and provide solutions for economic development. I'm going to put up a slideshow here, and I'm going to talk a little bit, have a few videos, and then at the end, we can kind of open it up for questions if folks have any. But yeah, we'll start the conversation here. Just give me 1 second. All right, can folks see my my mouse flying around on the screen here? Awesome. All right, so
Good.
welcome to the presentation, Filling the Gaps. We're going to talk about community-based solutions for economic development using co-ops. Before we get into that, I want to kind of share a little bit about who we are. So Co-operatives First is a nonprofit organization that supports people across Western Canada to create co-ops. Our organization is funded by Federated Cooperative Limited and the Cooperative Retailing System to provide two kind of important supports to communities in Western Canada. The first being providing accessible education on the co-op model and how it can be flexible. And the second is to provide free technical startup support for rural and Indigenous communities interested in starting a co-op. We know this business model is a great way for communities to solve their problems and meet their needs. Since 2016, we've helped to create over 120 co-ops in the housing, childcare, investment, health, and agriculture sectors, just to name a few. So you might be sitting here thinking, well, co-op's great, but what is a co-op exactly? Well, a co-op is a way of doing a business that allows people to come together to solve a problem or achieve a goal. When they hear about co-op businesses, people might think of the local gas station, grocery store, or hardware agricultural supplier. In fact, any business can be a co-op. There's a few things, however, that distinguish co-ops from other businesses. The first is that co-ops are owned by people who use them. These owners are called members. These members are collectively, they make decisions together to move the co-op forward. Because the members are all equal owners, co-ops have a one member, one vote decision-making system within the business. So unlike corporations, whose shareholders have more decision-making power based on how many shares they own, everybody always has an equal vote in a co-op. And additionally, co-ops are overseen by a board of directors that are made up of those members. Second, they are an incorporated legal entity, giving their members limited liability. Once they're incorporated, co-ops can access services that any other businesses have access to, like bank accounts and insurance to protect members and directors. Third, co-ops can be either for-profit or not-for-profit. For-profit co-ops distribute their profits amongst their members. Each member's portion of the profit is determined by how much they use the co-op that year. In a nonprofit version, which is also known as a community service co-op, any profits are reinvested back into the business and back into the community instead of back to the members. These features of a cooperative make them an ideal way to create local services or achieve a goal together. The best part? They are all governed and led by people who have a vested interest in seeing the co-op succeed. Their purpose is to meet the needs of their members, and the one member, one vote system means the members make decisions together in the best interest of the co-op. The primary goal of the business isn't to create profit, it's to ensure people have access to services and the goods they need. People in rural and remote communities are great at coming together to solve local problems or capitalize on opportunities themselves. They don't want to wait around for big businesses or the government to help. You may have heard of artisans co-ops, seniors housing co-ops, or even pet care co-ops. These are ways Manitobans have used the co-op model to create local services themselves. The town of Westlock is home to Westlock Terminals, an important co-op to the agricultural community. In that case, a group of farmers had come together and started a cooperative to buy the terminals when Agricor wanted to shut them down. It was a great way for people to come together to save an important local business on their own. We once spoke to the former mayor of Westlock, Ralph Larriger, who summed up co-ops in a way we personally love. He said, and you can see it on the PowerPoint here, when people need something, they make it happen. Albertans are entrepreneurial and not those that will sit around and wait for government or someone to do it for them. If you want to make your community a better place, then you got to get up off your backside and make it happen. And really, isn't that the essence of a cooperative? To us, this is the essence of a co-op. And we've seen rural communities across Western Canada embrace this idea. Co-ops provide a way for communities to come together and get up off their backsides to solve their problems. So a little bit about co-ops and what we've heard from people and how they've kind of been used. I kind of want to transition the conversation into challenges and opportunities and things we've seen over the past year and the conversations we're kind of having with rural and remote and Indigenous communities across Western Canada. I'm going to jump into some areas of interest. Many communities across Western Canada experience the same issues or gaps in services. Co-ops are a great way to create much needed services and infrastructure like housing and childcare spaces. They're also a great tool for business succession, community investing, and providing local entrepreneurs with flexible financing options. Tonight, I'll share a few insights on these areas and how co-ops can be started to address these areas of interest and impact economic development. So jumping right in, the first one I'm going to discuss is housing challenges. Affordable and accessible housing is it's a hot topic. There are not enough affordable housing units in Canada, which affects everyone from low income individuals to first-time homebuyers to seniors to college students. According to the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, CMHC, Canada will need an additional 3.5 million homes by 2030, and Manitoba specifically will need 260,000 itself. Housing continues to get less affordable as the average house price in Canada continues to rise and has risen $668,000 over the past year alone. One way communities can tackle this need for housing is by creating a housing co-op. As people struggle to find a place to live that fits their budget, the stability and affordability that housing co-ops can offer are becoming more attractive. In a housing co-op, the focus isn't on individual ownership or increasing property value, but on ensuring members have stable places to live that emphasize community. In Manitoba, communities can create nonprofit cooperative housing as a way to tackle the need for more affordable and accessible options. Housing co-ops can be very flexible, and their form really follows its function. Nonprofit housing co-ops are usually owned by their tenant members, whose housing charges reflect the actual cost of operating the property. This is Canada's most common housing co-op model and meets the criteria of major affordable housing funding agencies like CMHC's Housing Development Program. If your group wants to create a housing solutions but isn't made up of the people who will live in the building, a community service co-op could be the right fit as well. This model is more commonly used when starting seniors housing co-ops, whose members are not just going to be the tenants, but also members of the community who want to support the co-op. Membership in a community service co-op is open to the public, so anyone can get involved and be a part of the solution. Our friends in Southeast Manitoba put this model to work and are well on their way to starting the build for a new seniors housing facility. They started the Southeast Manitoba Seniors Community Services Cooperative and received tons of support from community members and organizations to help push their seniors housing co-op along in the process. Most of these co-ops will access some form of government funding to subsidize rents or construction and rely on a mortgage to cover construction costs. This model offers renters an alternative to a landlord and greater control over decisions that affect their homes. It also meets the criteria for funding agencies like CMHC. Community-led housing isn't the silver bullet to all housing issues, and how your community approaches solutions will depend on your local needs, populations, and available funds. However, housing co-ops are a solution that do allow people to come together and be involved in providing housing, affordability, and accessibility. So if you're interested in starting a community-led housing co-op, MHC has a funding program that can help. The Cooperative Housing Development Program, or CHDP, has $1.5 billion to expanding co-op rental housing, making it the most significant investment since the 1980s. The program aims to build thousands of new cooperatively owned homes over the next 7 years. The funding will cover up to 100% of project costs through a combination of repayable and forgivable loans. This program will fund projects that operate on a not-for-profit basis, including nonprofit housing co-ops, community housing organizations, land trusts, and Indigenous housing cooperatives. CMHC announced that this funding program will be opening up for its next intake sometime during the winter of 2025. So if you're interested in starting a housing co-op, there is funding available to help you get a housing co-op built in your community. So I wanted to transition a little bit away from housing and towards business succession. Another issue communities face is business retention and succession when it comes to owners wanting to sell or retire. Economies thrive when local businesses survive and continue to offer an avenue for people to spend their dollars in the community. An issue that business owners face in rural communities is that when it comes to wanting to move on or retire, there might not be an interested buyer, which may force the business owners to close up entirely rather than selling. Co-ops can be used to help tackle the challenge of business succession in Canada, especially for small and medium-sized businesses that are vital to our local economies. There are a few ways that co-ops can actually help facilitate this business succession and transition. The first is a worker-led transition. Employees have a vested interest in seeing a business continue its operations and usually have an intimate knowledge of how the company operates. If they want to take over the business and run it themselves, employees can choose to start a worker co-op. Though it can be difficult for employees to raise enough capital to buy the business, worker co-ops can issue investment shares or access funding to secure a buyout. The second is a producer-led transition. Wholesalers, manufacturers, and suppliers often rely on local service providers to deliver their products to the public. To ensure the supply chain remains operational and continues using a business people are familiar with, producers may work together to acquire a business under a producer co-op. Cooperatives such as Agripur have acquired several brands that help bring their members' products to market. And the third way we've seen this is through an investment-led transition. For communities where entrepreneurs have trouble accessing capital, an opportunity development co-op might be a good fit. I'll talk about this type of co-op in more detail a bit later in this presentation, but the community of Souk, which we can see in this picture here, is a great example of this. In Souk, the owner of a beloved cafe wanted to sell it, but there were no buyers coming forward. So some of its regular customers came together to form an investment co-op to raise the money to purchase the cafe. And they ended up doing that and reopening it only a few months after purchasing it using the investment co-op. Whichever option best fits your business or community, it's best to seek expert advice when going through this process. Business succession planning requires effective communication between local businesses and economic developers. Understanding what is needed to preserve local business by building on the community's economic and social capacity can help create continuity and retain benefits within the community. Contacting your community futures and cooperatives first is a great place to have and start this conversation and start those business succession conversations. Now we're going to jump right into another hot topic we're seeing across Canada, and that's childcare. One of the most significant issues facing communities right now is the availability of childcare spaces. I'm sure many of the communities you come from have this problem. There aren't enough spaces to accommodate all the children who need one. In a recent report, Western Canada has a lot of childcare deserts, and Manitoba is no different, with 76% of all children in the province living in areas without adequate spaces for the number of children who need them. This means that there are a lot of families in Manitoba struggling. Without enough childcare spaces, parents can have a hard time returning to work, which impacts local businesses and the broader economy. However, there is a solution: starting a licensed nonprofit childcare co-op. Creating this childcare co-op can address these issues and positively impact communities. By providing childcare spaces, you can strengthen the community's workforce, its long-term health, quality of life, and children's development. For every dollar spent on a childcare in a regional economy, it generates a further $1.38 to $2.54 for that region. You can take advantage of these economic multiplier effects by creating licensed nonprofit childcare. You can also take advantage of government funding right now that exists. In 2021, the government of Manitoba signed the Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare Agreement to help meet the federal target of $10 a day childcare. This move aims to reduce parent fees and create 23,000 new nonprofit spaces, a leap towards addressing the province's childcare needs and making childcare affordable. Manitoba has the most expansive capital support available for childcare co-ops, up to 60% of capital costs, with no maximum per spaces allocated to children under school age. This funding makes it easier for communities to start their childcare co-op. These cooperatives are a well-established way for parents, community members, economic development officers, and municipal and business leaders to work together to create licensed childcare spaces. Providing these spaces will have positive impacts on the economic and health of your community. If your town needs childcare and you're interested in starting a nonprofit childcare to address that need, we have a dedicated childcare team that is here to help you and your community work through every stage to achieve that. I wanted to share a great story about a group that essentially created childcare in their community. The small town of Maple Creek in southwest Saskatchewan was in desperate need of childcare. Without the spaces families need, employees in the Maple Creek had a hard time hanging on to or recruiting workers. So, this community decided to start a childcare co-op to address this need and took a unique approach that involved a number of local institutions. Can folks hear that?
It's buffering, I think.
The need for childcare in Maple Creek is
There
very
we go.
I've talked to many different parents, and we all have the same struggle of trying to find a spot to put our child in. And right now, all we have is private day homes, and the waiting lists are extremely long, and it's very tough to get into those private day homes. So we did a feasibility study. The need is really high in Maple Creek. I think approximately 80 spaces we could easily handle in Maple Creek. We received grant funding for 42, so we're going to start there. And then we're going to do a before and after school care program as well.
We actually don't have any licensed day homes, but we have non-licensed day homes and great providers, but it's not meeting all of the needs. And so people are not able to even move to our community because they don't have childcare arrangements.
There's 3 of us who work on economic development in the region. One for the Nick and Eat, that would have been Cherish Francis, and Christine Hoffman for the RM. And the 3 leaderships were working together at that time. And we were looking for a project that we could do together. And we talked about the lack of licensed daycare in the community. And that is a need. The Nick and Eat at the time had a big project that they were looking at building and would need childcare for their staff. It is actually a focus of the community to work all 3 leaderships together because we all benefit.
We're able to construct our own facility. It wasn't necessarily our main focus when we started. We all thought that we would just buy a building in town and renovate it, and we'd have a daycare up and running within a matter of months. As we progressed down the road, we realized that it's a lot bigger task than what we initially expected. Thankfully, we have a very diverse board who works together really well. Everybody brings different skill sets to the co-op board. And it quickly became apparent to us that purchasing a building and renovating it just wasn't going to be a fit for us. There was just no buildings in town that met the requirements of the Ministry of Education for this programs.
So what we're doing at the moment is looking for building designs, and making a decision on the structure. If we're going to go with a steel structure that can be put up right now, or how we're going to do it. Because the faster we can get this building off the ground and started, the better it will be for the community. We actually held an information night just after we formed the cooperative, and we obtained 4 more board members that way. So it yeah, there is definitely a lot of interest in this project. I think the co-op structure it allows the parents to be very involved in the care that their kids are participating in. So it gives them the ability to control a lot of what's happening in a facility.
What I would tell other communities is that the co-op model has some really good advantages. It really gives everybody at the table a voice. It's really good for down the road when parents necessarily aren't still going to be on the board, that they can turn it over to the new parents, and there's going to be continuity with the co-op going forward. And it's really a community project at the end of the day. The entire community is going to benefit from the daycare, whether there's parents involved or whether it's a local hospital or the Board of Education trying to hire teachers. So for us, the co-op model just was a really good fit in order to get up and running quickly and efficiently and work towards our goal of opening a daycare facility in Big Creek. So working with Co-operatives First has been very important to our board. We definitely wouldn't be as far advanced as we are without them. You know, we definitely wouldn't be where we were at without Co-operatives First. They really moved us down the road and gave us a lot of progress and a lot of ideas. And it's just been really great to work with them. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah, so that's the Maple Creek Childcare Cooperative. They're a great example of local institutions seeing a need and coming together to address that need, starting a childcare co-op. If this is something that a group is interested, whether it be parents, local institutions, or other community members, this is something we can help you and your community start. Oh, we jumped right ahead. So another way we've kind of seen this is supporting small businesses. Does your community have entrepreneurs doing similar things or offering similar services that are struggling to compete in a bigger market or have high administrative costs? If so, there's a way co-ops can address those challenges. The producer marketing co-op model can allow entrepreneurs and small businesses to come together to form a co-op to address those issues. These marketing or producer co-ops allow the businesses that own them to do things like purchase essential goods as a group, share administrative costs collectively under the co-op, and increase the value of their products through collective marketing and distribution. Producer co-ops are a great way to achieve economies of scale, enter new markets, and acquire additional resources while adding value to their product. We've seen several co-ops created using this model, from registered massage therapists to flower producers that we see on the screen, or to grain farmers. This model allows rural businesses to come together to access the bigger market and share costs without giving up their individual business. These businesses can also be these co-ops can also be profitable, with members getting a share of that co-op's profits at the end of the year based on how much they use the co-op for their business. I wanted to share another great video of the Cooperative Flower Network. They're a great example of businesses supporting each other. This group of flower producers in Alberta created the co-op to help each individual producer scale up their business while sharing in the costs instead of taking it head on individually. These producers solved their problem using a co-op while continuing to operate their individual businesses.
Producer kind of co-op was a perfect business model, especially when it comes to, like, I'm a farmer florist, so growing flowers, but also like sourcing as much as I can. Basically, as a florist, this is exactly the service that I want. I want to see all the growers in one place and shop once. And then as a producer, it's really nice to be able to, oh, I don't need these specific stems this week. I can make a little extra. And probably one of the biggest clients of the co-op as well, just because this is exactly what I wanted for my flower business, both as a florist and as a grower.
Yeah, there's the benefits of this co-op for the growers themselves because it gives all of us access to many customers in one place. but it also is the same for our customers too. Like they're loving that they can shop from 11 different growers and 11 different selections of farms products in one place and pick up in one place and pay on one invoice. It works for both of us on each end. And I think the co-op model works really well because all of our members put in so much work. And it's nice that we all get to share what comes out of it equally.
I think the biggest benefit for us is just feeling a part of that community and having other farmers that we can connect with. So it's really cool that the cooperative exists for us to be able to connect with other farmers that are experiencing the same hardships. We are establishing ourselves within the floral industry and just having like a great access point for florists to be able to buy local flowers. Previously, before the co-op, it was always a bit kind of crazy where we'd have florists messaging us and then we'd reach out to other growers if we couldn't provide them with the flowers that they were looking for. It's just really nice to have like that one central spot for both us and for the florist.
I think the co-op model has also been really positive because, you know, when you are running, we're all running our own businesses as well. And so sometimes that gets really heavy and it's really hard to do anything else. So it's like, oh, this is like the perfect business because you have all these people bringing their strengths.
Different talents too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just building this sense of community, and you can get your coffee, you can come have a little chit chat, commiserate, celebrate the wins. Like there's a lot of really beneficial things, like especially we've been talking about mental health for farmers and how that is a struggle and just dealing with the elements and dealing with the pressures of these types of businesses.
We were purchasing all these items from growers, but then they don't have the same skin in the game and they don't get to have that contact with the customers. So it's a more personable experience having a co-op.
The Cooperative Flower Network is another great example of how people have used the unique producer co-op model to access a bigger market, to come together to compete in the bigger market and sharing costs that might be too much for an individual provider or service user. So, community investing. I touched upon this a little bit earlier when talking about business succession and retention. I'm going to share a little bit more about it now. Community investment co-ops, they're a great way to use a co-op to provide flexible financing while offering members a chance to invest in their own community. The idea behind an investment co-op is simple. Most of us already invest through our retirement savings in TFSAs or RRSPs. That money is doing economic development somewhere else where we don't see the benefits at the local level. Community investing, the people who create investment co-ops, challenge this convention. Through the sales of shares or loans, investment co-ops allow community members to create a locally managed pool of funds to support entrepreneurs and local economic development. That way, you can see the impact of your investments, you can shop at the businesses you support, and see the jobs that get created. And if things go well, and your team picks the suitable projects, you can also see a return on your investment in the form of dividends. An investment co-op can support entrepreneurs by issuing loans or taking on projects themselves. They might buy and renovate property on Main Street and lease space to businesses, or they could buy a business outright to prevent losing a service. This flexibility allows the co-op members to get creative with how they support economic development. By bringing together businesses, investors, and community leaders, an investment co-op can be the tool to start discussions about what your community needs and addressing those gaps. Maybe you need more homes to house new workers that will help businesses grow. Or maybe you need to revitalize Main Street to attract new service providers. When communities start investment co-op, they can work together to plan for growth and follow through on projects with their own money and see the return. Last video I want to show folks tonight is of the Shaunavon Opportunity Fund Co-op. A community in the southern part of Saskatchewan started an investment co-op to tackle a local challenge. During the pandemic, businesses in Shaunavon struggled to find financing options that met their needs. The town's Economic Development Committee got to work on the problem. The committee, which represents the prairie community of 1,700 residents, thought an investment co-op could help give the business owners a boost.
Well, the goals are to provide money for entrepreneurs and small businesses. Credit unions and banks are slowly changing, but they are not set up for small business loans at all. And I don't know that they ever will be. So these boards are really important. I think that the opportunity funds and local financial boards are really important to small communities.
So the co-op is designed to help local businesses with financing for things that are maybe not covered under a lease, or if they're having more difficulty getting traditional lending, that's where the co-op's going to come in. We're not a lender of last resort, rather a lender to try and help the company progress further. The goal of the co-op has always been to best help communities in the Southwest. So whether it's helping out a small business in Shaunavon or East End or Frontier, we want to encompass the whole Southwest and help businesses and young people get going and develop and grow our community.
The impact on the community would keep doors open on businesses, you know, and when that happens, there's somebody there making an income, and hopefully they may even have some employees. Okay, so that whole impact goes to. So if they got some employees, maybe the employees got some kids, and you know, so there's students to put into school, and there's it just, you know, people need to have work and in order to live here, and so it just provides the opportunity for those kinds of things to happen.
The retail industry is a challenge in these smaller communities. I can see helping out service industries. Typically, restaurant business is tough to get traditional financing for. I could see helping there. Banks don't particularly like inventory, but we have a very strong service industry in Shaunavon, and that's where I anticipate helping out.
So we've talked to numerous businesses, both in the ag sector, the oil and gas sector, and retail. And there's a need for this service in all of those sectors.
Why we thought the co-op was the best way, and we were looking at different structures that we could use, But as we went into it, and the pros and cons of the different kinds of things like limited partnerships and these kinds of stuff, that the co-op one made the most amount of sense to us to keep everyone satisfied. Plus, if we had an investor to put in $50,000 and another investor to put in $5,000, the $50,000 could have way more goals than the $5,000 person. And so there was some potential maybe there for who's going to control things and this kind of stuff. This way, it doesn't matter how much you have, everybody has the same say.
In Shaunavon, we have a pretty awesome business community. It's really grown over the past several years. Like, we've really seen a boom in little shops and small businesses starting up, small markets, home goods stores, things like that. So we're just really hoping to help these local business owners, especially those ones that are just in their first few years of business, you know, whether it be a local restaurant, if they need to purchase a new piece of equipment, or our coffee shop might need a new espresso machine, something like that. And we hope to be able to provide those funds to assist with those types of projects. You know, everybody's here looking out for each other. Everybody, you know, your neighbor is your friend, and your friend is there to help you. And everybody just kind of pitches in and gets things done in this community. Our business owners they don't really see each other as competition. They see each other as support systems. Like, I've seen that in our local restaurants throughout the years. Like, if somebody needs some supply, one of them's out of it, the other ones will help them out. So it really is just a tight-knit community in that sense, that everybody feels safe, everybody has a sense of belonging, and just works together to make it as good as it can be, I hope.
And that's the Shaunavon Opportunity Fund Cooperative. These are all ways that we've seen co-ops, whether it be investment co-ops, housing co-ops, childcare. These are all ways we've seen the model used to be flexible and to help people come together and address some of the needs that they see in their communities. And this is where we really see the flexibility of the model come in very handy for rural communities across Western Canada. So I've talked and I've shared a little bit about some of the insights, the challenges, and the areas of interest when it comes to co-ops. Now, I might, or I might, but I'm going to share a little bit about what you might need to start a co-op and a few things to keep in mind if you're interested in starting a co-op. The first is finding your purpose. So now maybe you might be thinking that some of these areas that I've shared tonight apply to your community, and some examples have sparked some ideas for cooperatives that you could start. If that's the case, great. Here are three important steps I'm going to speak about to help you get started in creating your co-op. Identifying your co-op's purpose is probably one of the biggest and the first step needed. This will shape what the co-op will do and how it will be structured. Knowing the problem your community has will help your co-op focus in on its purpose, whether it be a lack of affordable accessible housing, a need for affordable childcare spaces, or lack of financial flexibility or investment options. Knowing the gap that exists in your community will help identify the co-op's purpose. Understanding the problem you're trying to solve will help you identify the co-op's purpose and will help you steer in the right direction in starting the co-op. Will the co-op then try to provide affordable housing to its members, investment opportunities, and flexible financing for your community using an investment co-op? Or will it allow parents to put their children in affordable and accessible childcare? Whatever the case may be, because a co-op is created by a group of people, everyone needs to agree on its purpose. Next, you need to find your people. Now that you have your purpose, the next step is to find the people who want to join you in creating the co-op. A co-op's members should be the people who will use and benefit and support the co-op. To start a co-op, you'll need at least 3 committed people to work on getting it started, becoming its steering committee, and eventually its first board of directors. Surveying your community or people who you know want a similar solution, and then have a meeting to talk about the kind of initiative you'd like to start with them. If you're all on the same page, it's a good indication that a co-op could be the right fit for your business idea. And now you have your people. And finally, finding your supporters. Supporters exist to help make your lives easier and provide their expertise to help you start your business. Identifying the supporters for your co-op is important because it can offer some valuable advice on starting your business, resources for your group to access, and in some cases, can even provide some startup funding for your business to help get you started. Supporters can be community members who want to volunteer their time to help move the co-op forward, businesses that would like to donate, or even local municipalities who wish to assist because the co-op addresses a significant need in their community. They can also be organizations like Co-operatives First or your local Community Futures, who are experts in business development and both have the resources to assist your co-op business. Whichever kind of co-op you create, people and organizations can support you in many ways. Reach out to individuals, community organizations, and institutions to start the conversation on how they can help support and be a part of your co-op's development and success. So those are the 3 kind of important steps and important things to consider as you become interested or are interested in starting a co-op. I want to touch a little bit now on how we, Co-operatives First, can help specifically. So we offer guidance to communities across Western Canada in helping them create investment-ready co-ops. Typically, we meet with a group early on in their ideation and planning stage. Groups, they'll typically come to us with an idea for a co-op in their community, and we meet with them to discuss their idea and see if it can fit as a co-op. From there, we will introduce steps they need to take to get the people, the market, and the idea identified and fleshed out to move forward. We then guide the groups through the incorporation process. We help and draft to develop the co-op's governance and structure to fit what the group wants to do, drafting the articles and bylaws, and other documents and filing them with their local corporate registry. Once this process is completed, the group will have an incorporated co-op and will be able to begin operating the business and doing the things the co-op was created for. We also offer a little bit of aftercare support services as well. Our business coaching is something we offer for groups looking to develop their business plan alongside our entrepreneur in residence. This service is free of charge, but something we offer to groups based on a quarterly basis and how ready the group is to move forward with developing the business plan to help with their operations. Additionally, our Director of Education can provide co-ops with governance support tailored to the group's needs, and our Director of Communications can help the co-op draft and develop a communication strategy. If groups want to take a self-paced or hands-on approach, we offer resources such as our online course for co-op entrepreneurs that walks individuals through the stages of developing their co-op while also offering key considerations and insights into developing their idea. Our co-op creator can also support those self-paced and hands-on approach entrepreneurs that hosts many of our resources and templates for groups to access at any point in their journey. We also have our biz plan generator for those wanting to develop their own business plan. These are just some of the resources and the ways we help groups when they're interested in starting a co-op. Lastly, I wanted to share a few of the things we have specifically. So this QR code is it takes a group to our landing page that helps groups in Manitoba start a childcare co-op. It'll have informational videos as well as our workbook for Manitoba specific childcare co-ops to work through and understand what they might need to consider, as well as have some financing options as well. On this page as well, you'll find the contact information for our childcare team. And if that's something you want to move forward with, you can reach out to them and get that support. And then on this other side, we have our monthly newsletter where we share great stories, what we're getting up to, some great little resources we have, and any kind of other cool things about co-ops monthly with folks who are interested in learning. So if either of these are resources that you might be interested in, all you have to do is take your phone, scan the QR code with your photo app, and it'll take you right to the page. You can also access these on our website as well. So yeah, many ways to get to them. But yeah, that's what I had planned for the session today. I want to thank everyone once again for taking the time on a Tuesday to join us and hear a little bit about who we are, what we're seeing, and how groups can fill a need and address a gap in their community using co-ops. I'm going to take this time to open up the floor, the online floor for questions if folks have any kind of questions. Additionally, if folks have questions, maybe not right now, but one comes up a minute, 5 minutes, an hour, a couple days, whatever it may be, I do have my information on the screen here. Please feel free to reach out with any kind of question you have. I'm always willing to help. So yeah, please always feel free to reach out. But yeah, ask any questions you might have.
I'm not seeing a hand, so I'm just putting my real hand up here.
Absolutely.
Okay,
I'm curious to know whether you have assisted any communities where there's very little business, there's very little anything. I'm talking about Cranberry Portage here, where there's a group of us trying to figure out a way to kind of create a community hub that has everything in it. We have artisan markets, we have a lot of artists, we have people who do food, we have people who want to work on tourism, we have nothing, we don't have a community center, for example. So you know, a place that you could show a movie or have a library or, you know, all that kind of thing. So the idea that we've been floating around for some time is to go to something like a co-op that can kind of encompass a lot of different things. I'm just curious if that particular if you've worked with any communities to try to create something like that, or is it all very area-based, childcare, seniors housing, etc.?
Yeah, that's a great question, Barb. Yes, we have worked with groups in many different kinds of areas where they want to do many different kinds of things. In most cases, this sounds similar to something what a community service co-op would be, where community organizations, people come together to become members of the co-op and then potentially set up a hub or a building where they can offer all of their services to essentially host at this kind of service or this hub. Additionally, doing it this way can also make a group applicable for applying for funding and grants and all those kinds of things as well. I always kind of like to stress that it's really up to what the group wants to see. The model can be very flexible when it comes to developing a co-op. So in this case, I want to say yes. I don't want to say we've specifically done something where it's been all of that at once, but we've helped groups do adjacent things where they've maybe created a community host these kind of events or host artisans coming together to put on a workshop, what have you. These are things we have helped with and can help a group like Cranberry Portage to do. I want to say that the population size it really isn't the size of the population, but the people wanting to come together. There's a group in Sangudo, Alberta, which is a community of 300 people, came together. They created an investment co-op to build housing, to create and purchase and repurpose the Legion building for a community restaurant and meeting area, as well as provide financing for local entrepreneurs to bring businesses to their community. So it's not necessarily we help in housing, childcare. We do help those, but we can help in anywhere kind of else. You might think a co-op could be flexible and could work in your community.
Okay, and you tweaked something else I was thinking about, being that I do sit on two foundation boards, the community investment conversation that you had, my head just kept going around. You know, we're through foundations, which will give back, you know, perpetual endowment funds will give back to the communities. And it seems like that would end up being a competing challenge for trying to get people to contribute to something like an investment. Or are people actually contributing to it, or are you finding funds for that for your capital?
So people actually contribute. So with an investment co-op, there's two kinds of things. There's two forms of shares. There's a membership share, and then there's an investment share. The co-op will offer an investment share for their members to purchase to pool their capital into the co-op. The co-op will then use that pooled investment share capital to use as investments into their community. So essentially using that capital will allow it to be a form of flexible financing where it can fund, it can offer it as a loan or purchase projects, where the co-op will eventually look to make their money back and then a little bit as well so that they can get profit that can then be returned to their members based on investment shares. So what it is, you know, a co-op can offer $500 investment shares up to X amount. One individual can purchase one, another could purchase, you know, 10, meaning that each person has contributed to the investment co-op. At the end of the year, when it turns a profit, each person will get a percentage of that profit returned back to them based on how much they invested in the co-op. So let's say hypothetically, there's 6 people, one person has invested 10, well, the others invested 2 or purchase 2 investment shares. Essentially, what it'll look like is that at the end of the year, the profit will be divided by how many investment shares they are. And then for how much each person has purchased an investment share, they'll get that much times their investment share. So $50 times 6 or $50 times 2, what have you. The idea is just pooling it into the co-op to then use as an investment into their community, with the hopes of getting that investment back plus a return on investment for their members.
So, and I think I need to think about this for a while, but do you not see that as a competition for, like endowment funds that support that community, or Community Futures, who has funds to be, if as I'm learning all of this stuff eventually, if I assume because they're putting this on that there are initiatives that a community group like that could potentially do the same thing. So
Like when it comes to foundation, like they're a granting agency, they're not a business model, right? Whereas cooperatives are a type of business model. And so Greenstone could be a lender to a co-op, right? We could be an
Right.
investor. We could be a facilitator in that process. There's a number of different roles we play, but the community foundations have quite a narrow mandate in terms of granting, and yeah, so I wouldn't look at it in a similar way.
And
yeah, I'll have to mull this one around for a while.
And those are great questions. I've helped, some communities have this kind of conversation, and that's actually never come up in terms of a question. So that's a really good question. Thanks for asking that, Barb.
Well, we've just gone through the giving challenge with Endow Manitoba. So we've gone out to the community. We've asked for funds to go back to the endowment fund so that our communities will benefit from those. So I can see if you're trying to create an investment opportunity for people. I mean, no, it's different because it is a business, but
right, because if I give to Endow Manitoba, right, I write my $100 check and send it off, I now have no say in what happens with $100, right? So there's sort of none of that
actually you do.
Well,
You can say where it's to be used.
But I don't get to sit at the board table of the community foundation and make decisions. Right? So whereas with a co-op that
I'm just talking about the going and asking people in the community for money kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't see it as a donation, because a donation is very different than an investment.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. I understand.
Looks like we have another question. Sorry, I didn't actually quite catch your name. It's got the number here.
Yeah. Hi, my name is David.
Hi, David.
Hi. In your experience, how long does it take to develop this idea of a co-op and start running the co-op? Let's say, does it take a year, a couple of years? What will be the time frame for this particular idea of running a co-op?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and one we actually get asked quite a lot. It really depends on the group and their involvement and their time that they can give. In most cases, folks are starting co-ops on the side of what they're doing on a day-to-day case. And so it really follows the timeline of how much time they can afford to give and help move the process along. What we're here for at Co-operatives First is we're here to help take that idea and help that group walk through developing that idea, starting it as a co-op. We've seen turnaround times from meeting with groups from anywhere from 2 months from very first meeting to incorporation to a year to 2 years. And it really follows what the group wants to do and how flexible they can be in moving that co-op forward. So I don't know if I gave you a very I don't want to say straightforward answer, but more so just it's really dependent on how the group wants to move.
That's right, because again, I have no experience in such a thing as a co-op, and I'm wondering the time frame. Let's say if let's say I would like to start something like this, so is it reasonable like if within a year I can have some sort of something kind of ready to launch into I don't know, into the real market out there kind of thing?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
okay, then that's good. Now I have another question, and this is kind of let's say if this is hypothetical question, like let's say myself, my wife, and my three children, we would like to do a cooperative business or something like you are saying. Is it feasible for a family to do that, or it has to be the members of the community at large?
Oh, that's another great question. There's specific things that are in place within the Cooperatives Act within Manitoba, where there's specific things where you do need to meet the three people at the very least to start a co-op. And they also have to be 18 years of age to sit on the first board of directors. So if you, your wife, and your kids are all of over the age of 18, you can start a co-op with just the five of you. You could start things like an employment co-op where the co-op employs its members, or you can create a community service co-op. One thing I do always want to mention though is that whatever kind of co-op you're looking to start, making sure the community is a part of that conversation or is aware will really be important when you're starting things like a housing co-op, a childcare co-op, things that really impact the community at large. Whereas something with like an employment co-op or a producers co-op, the community buy-in is important, but it's not necessarily always needed because it can be very small scale.
Mhm. Okay, thank you for guiding us. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And like I said, if more questions come up, my email, I think I'm still sharing my screen, correct? We can still see my PowerPoint. Yes. It's still there. You can send me an email. You can connect with Sandra, and Becky as well, and they can share my information with you as well if you want to reach out. We're always happy to have a conversation. But yeah, these are great questions. Folks have any other kind of questions at this moment that I could help with?
Mhm.
I guess you gave us all the information we need.
And that's fair. One thing I will kind of say, and I know Becky, Sandra kind of discussed about it, but this time next week, we're also offering another online webinar event where we'll discuss seniors housing co-ops and what co-ops can provide as a solution for providing seniors housing in your community. So if that's something that you're also interested in, that's something we're running this time next week. I assume it'll follow the same kind of process where if folks can't make it, it'll be recorded and shared as well. But just wanted to share that with folks.
And I've put the event and the link in the chat. So
Awesome.
if you want to access it right away, you can.
Awesome.
And you'll be emailing it out as well, or that link?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll because what I'll do is I'll email the recording, the PowerPoint, and then the invitation for next week's chat sometime tomorrow.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks for putting this on.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thanks so much, Sandra, for coordinating all of that for us. And thanks, Ryley, for spending time with us this evening, and to everybody who joined. Any last thoughts, Ryley, Sandra? Be good? Last thoughts from Sandra O's kids?
Just wait a minute. I'm just gonna say thank you to Sandra for all of her efforts and taking the reins to organize and put all our advertising and all of that stuff together. So that was very helpful. Thank you for doing that.
Fun. I live for that stuff.
Mr. 778840936. Where are you from?
Yeah, David, myself.
Right.
I'm right now in Churchill.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
I am originally from South America, from Peru.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long have you been in Churchill?
A couple of years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quite
Very
a difference.
very interesting community and lots of opportunities perhaps. So yeah, I'm saying keeping my eye open and see what can happen here.
There is a co-op in Churchill. Sorry to interrupt with all of this, but that I met and went to a presentation at a conference last fall. They got started as an arts co-op, but they've really grown into a bunch of other stuff, and I can't think of his name. Do you know what it is, Becky? The guy who put on a presentation at that workshop?
I wasn't at that workshop, but I do know what you're referencing. Is it Roy
Roy Mexted.
Yeah.
There we go. Sandra knows.
Yes, I also used to live in Churchill, so that's where my
Yeah.
mom is from, so I have lots of family there.
Oh.
So
Okay.
what's the name of the co-op? So David can.
Is it the Northern Collective? Or Northern Artists Collective, something along those
Oh,
lines.
okay. Yeah, probably yes. It's a group of artists that they got together and they're doing now sellings at the community center. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
believe
he
so,
may
yeah.
have he might be
Yeah.
able to sit down and chat too about how
That's
they
right.
develop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would be a good contact people here in Churchill then. Thanks.
Okay.
Awesome.
Good.
Awesome.
Well,
Thanks
thank you.
so much.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, and thank you to all of you for making your time on a Tuesday evening with the weather that we are and will be having. Appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you, Ryley.
Thanks,
Thank
Ryley.
you.
Thanks, everyone. See you.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.